All right, everybody. Welcome to the space. Thanks for being here. How many is it your first time being at the space? That's awesome. Where's all my members at? Raise your hand, members. All right. So just to tell you guys a little bit about the space. So my name's Joel. If I haven't met you yet, I'm the executive director here at the space, but thanks everybody for being here. But we are a member-run Bitcoin education nonprofit here in Denver. We've been an organization since April of 2024. We've been in this beautiful building since October of 2024. And so we're really looking to hit the ground this year with a lot more fun educational things for everybody in the community. So this is our first in the AI realm that we want to talk about. We have awesome Matt Hill here to kind of walk us through this tonight. He's been a longtime friend of the space, even before we were the space. But just to tell you guys a little bit more about us, we have about 55 members at this point that pay monthly dues here at the space, so that's really just our business model. We also have some corporate sponsorships that help us run these types of things, and we like to keep these events as free as possible. So getting more members, getting more sponsorships, those are the things that makes that possible. Outside of that, if you want to become a member, you can, anybody, if you saw somebody raising their hand that was a member, or you can come talk to myself. There's a couple guys in the back there. You can come talk to them if you want to talk about being a member, but our membership starts about $150 a month and goes up from there, just depending on what you want to have. But we do public events like this that are free to everybody. We do private member-only events, private parties, and a lot of fun stuff all around Denver. But thank you guys for being here. A couple quick things. So this is our first installment of this AI training. This is going to be a monthly thing. So we've actually locked down Matt now for a monthly deal for this, which is great. Just so you know, these are going to build on each other. So this is the intro one to kind of talk about what's out there in AI now. But then Matt will start to build on those as we move forward to make them even more maybe project-based. So if you have machines that are running AI on them already, bring them. If we need some hand-holding to walk through any things that you guys are doing with AI, let's talk about it. A couple other quick things. This Saturday, if you're here for AI but you know nothing about Bitcoin, we actually have our Bitcoin 101 course on Saturday to talk through a little bit about what is money and a little bit about Bitcoin in there as well. Where's Mark Mariah? Where are you at? Oh, he's right here. So Mark Mariah is going to be running us through the Bitcoin 101 and what is money training on Saturday. And then Tim McTavish right here, he's going to be running our Bitcoin 201, which is in the middle of May, May 12th, right? May 12th, Tuesday. And then right after that, Mark Mariah is also going to be doing a 2-day summit here, which he's calling the Time Change Summit. And I'm going to bring him up to come talk about that for just a little bit. But again, thank you guys for being here at the space. If you have any questions, again, my name's Joel. All right?
Awesome. Thanks, Joel. So how many in here, show of hands again on the folks that are brand new, have not been here in this building before? Okay. Welcome. We love having you guys. And we are doing something that we think is pretty unique. How many have been in Bitcoin for at least 10 years? Show of hands. Has there ever been, as far as you know, a celebration of the time chain? Not Bitcoin, the time chain. And when I talk about the time chain, I'm talking about everything but the store of value. Does anyone know of one? Because I don't know. I've asked this question of a lot of people. So the space members are going to be celebrating the Bitcoin time chain for its 17 years of amazing and nearly flawless service to humanity, and it happens right here. May 15 and May 16, and we would love to have you. We're going to be doing a number of things that are kind of unusual. So those of you who are in the room, how many here are not familiar at all with Bitcoin? Anyone? Okay, a couple, good, all right. So the time chain is really the world's first monetary system that's anchored in time and energy that nobody can control. Usually it's controlled by governments. And what we're going to be doing, the time chain enables these other functions of money. So the obvious ones, store value. The other ones are mean of exchange, unit of account, settlement layer, and collateral layer. So we're going to have project leaders. Mark Link is one of them. He's right here in the front. We got a few folks that'll be talking about projects as well. But for 24 hours, we're going to operate on a time chain standard, and I'll explain more about that at the actual event, but it'll be fun. We are going to have an AI workshop ourselves on that Friday, so the 15th, we're going to be doing one. In fact, maybe we'll have Matt at least sit in on it as well. And one of the things we're going to do that's unusual is we're going to embed the block height into the immutable ledger when we start the event and when we end the event. In fact, Hunter, who I didn't see, is Hunter here? Okay, Hunter is our clocksmith. Hunter's going to be doing the actual embedding of the block height. And we're also going to have a beefsteak after party that'll be on the 16th, and then again, it'll be right here. So we would love to have you. If you want, you can also get a discount off the beefsteak if you're signed up for the Time Chain Summit. So that's it. Now, I'm also supposed to introduce Matt, and I actually want to thank Matt, because as of yesterday, we thought our keynote was going to be Bob Burnett, and Bob apparently has some family issues. So I asked Matt if he'd be willing to sit in and fill in and be our keynote, because this is not going to be a speaker fest. It's going to be a get shit done fest. Okay, we're going to be doing things. And Matt graciously said yes. So I had penned a poem, which I was going to, well, the other thing you have to know about me is I've written lots of poems, and I'll be introducing speakers, including Mark Link and Matt Hill, with a poem. And in fact, if you'll give me 2 seconds, I'll get my computer and I'll introduce you via my poem. Give me 1 second. Because I don't have that on a piece of paper. And it's rough, so it'll probably change by the time May 15th rolls around. I'm guessing you've probably never been introduced by a poem. Am I guessing right, Matt? All right. And you can tell he's excited.
Did AI help you?
Actually, no. So everyone has asked me that question.
You're doing it wrong. What's that? You're doing it wrong.
I can't even get into my computer. Using AI. All right, so no. In fact, we'll have a Time Chain Summit anthem that we'll play that Mark Link actually helped create using AI. So the music we might create off of it was AI, but no, all of this was me. And this is what I came up with for Matt. So when it comes to creating freedom tech, the 3-letter agencies view his as a pain in the neck. Start9 makes it easy for the tech idiots like me to run a Bitcoin node with setup made easy. Unlike most tech CEOs, he doesn't do vaporware, no empty promises from his team because they care. Their response times for customer requests deliver service levels that are simply the best. His insights on using OpenClaw may be the best we ever saw. AI lets us do things that free the spirit, and the time chain won't let hacks get near it. So with that, I will introduce Matt Hill.
Thank you. Appreciate that. All right. Hi, everyone. As I said, my name is Matt Hill. I'm a co-founder and CEO of Start9. Start9 is a freedom tech company, broadly speaking, slightly more limited. We are a computer company. Our tagline is sovereign computing. We believe that humans should be able to use computers, cell phones, tablets, laptops, whatever comes to mind when you hear that word. Could be a camera or a drone, right? These are all computers, in such a way that you control the computer 100%, right? All of the data that are processed on it, stored on it, passed through it, are all yours and yours alone to control and grant access externally if and only if you want to. Roughly speaking, that's called sovereign computing. And that's what we try to make accessible to everyone, because it's always been possible, but you had to be kind of you had to be a software engineer and a Linux sysadmin and have a lot of time on your hands and a lot of patience, which just made it inaccessible to most people in the world. So we try to lower that bar and make sovereign technology available to normal people. We've been doing this for over 6 years now, selling globally for about 6 years, and are getting better and better by the month. And many people in here probably use our computers, our servers that we sell. Actually, let's see, raise your hand. That's a lot of hands, cool. Yeah, all right, we're doing it. So anyway, given my vantage point, all right, as a CEO of a computer company, especially a sovereign computer company, there's a few technologies that are unavoidable. One of them was Bitcoin, of course, because Bitcoin is a piece of software that is very much in the ethos of individual sovereignty, privacy, censorship resistance, right? This is all things that we want from our computing paradigm, and so Bitcoin is a wonderful example of a piece of software that aligns with the type of computing paradigm we would like to see in the world. There are others. Those are not the focus of tonight. Tonight is not about Bitcoin at all. Tonight is about artificial intelligence. This has been unavoidable, not just for us, but for everyone, right? Or at least it will be. That's the hypothesis here. And I'm not prone to fads. I have a pretty good antenna for things that don't have staying power. I'm not claiming to be infallible on this, but if I were to make a claim here, I'd say that artificial intelligence and the ability to use it effectively will become a survival skill in the not too distant future. And by not too distant, we actually don't have an exact timeline here, but it's sooner than you think. You know, the internet changed the way we work in the world, and if you did not adapt to it, you got left behind. You got fired for somebody who did understand it, your business got beat by a company that could adopt it, et cetera. I think that this is that on steroids. Some of you in here I've had private conversations with over the last 6 months or so. During that time, I have gone from very considerate and healthy skeptic of what is happening to extremist. We're all gonna, you know, I'm not gonna say the word. You know, and I did that very evidence-based, right? Based on what I was observing, based on what I was experiencing, projecting outward. You have to take note of this at this point, and you have to take it seriously, or you are in danger. Your career, and even potentially, if you project outward a little bit further, potentially even sort of physically and politically in danger. So better get on it, and that's kind of what I'm here to do. I have no idea what the level of exposure or experience or knowledge anybody in this room has with artificial intelligence, as in you've heard the word on CNBC, or you use it for 95% of your daily workflow like I do. So I'm sure there's everything in between, which means I don't have a perfect way to do this inaugural meeting. As you know, as was mentioned, we're going to try to do this every month if there's interest. And this is kind of a kickoff. Great turnout. Hopefully there's enough staying power and interest that we can do this month after month and get increasingly hands-on. I want computers out, right? We'll walk around the room. More experienced can help the less experienced until everyone in the room is crushing it, right? In your own vertical, your personal life, your work life, your company, whatever it happens to be, we can help each other get there, and that includes myself. There are definitely people in this room who understand aspects of what's happening better than I do, who use tools that I haven't used, and I would love to learn these things. So I want to approach this in a bit of a Socratic approach, right? So this is not just me going to be like preaching at the crowd. I'm going to kind of guide, right? I got some slides that I'm going to throw up here. I don't know what they say. I didn't make them. I'm not kidding. I'm not kidding. I gave some guidelines and I looked at them, make sure there was nothing glaringly wrong, but they're good enough. You know what I mean? Like, the point is not the slides. The slides are just something for us to use as a guidepost. So anyway, we'll go through them, and we'll start at the beginning. And I'll try not to bore anyone by lingering on, fundamentals too long, and we'll go all the way through to talking about specific tooling and strategies that people are using today to augment their productivity. So let's dive in. AI Productivity 101, this is a PDF. I didn't make it into a slide deck. Here's a little outline of this guy. We're going to go through this pretty quick, but how these models actually work, right? We're going to talk about just what is an LLM. Tokens, context, what you're paying for, the model landscape, who makes what, who are the different players in the AI industry right now, subscriptions versus API pay-as-you-go usage, harnesses, what is a harness, how does it differ from the LLM itself or apps. Sync versus async, so different workflows that you can use with AI, where you're working with it directly or it's kind of acting autonomously in the background. And then just kind of what should you do to get started. Okay, neural network. For the purposes of this talk and pretty much any conversation you're going to have, LLM and neural network can be used interchangeably, right? Just kind of think of it as the same thing. So if you hear either of those, they kind of mean the same thing. It is effectively the engine that is performing the intelligence, right? It's when somebody says AI, mostly what they're referring to is this large language model or neural network. These things are trained, okay? Training is a industry word in AI. It doesn't just mean colloquially training, like I'm training for a race. Training in the AI world means something specific. And it is basically, data goes in, text, image, audio is converted into numbers, knobs get consulted, prediction comes out. This is how we experience an LLM, right? So we are going to put data into the thing. It's going to reference its training data, make some predictions, and those predictions come out as a coherent, human, intelligible response. Way you can think about this at the bottom here, this analogy, a student who's read every book in the library, then forgot the books themselves, but is extremely good at fishing out sentences, right? So the AI itself doesn't even really know what it knows. It's just spitting out word after word, prediction after prediction, and only a human looking at it afterwards is going to be able to say that's a coherent sentence and the correct answer. Okay. We're going to keep this high level, and then we can get in deeper on any subject and do questions afterwards. So yeah, this is what I was just saying. At its core, predict the next word and repeat. Trillions of words. Training an LLM is going to take in entire books, websites, statistical patterns across the internet, across all of human history and knowledge, and you can train it on whatever you want. And the ones that are the state-of-the-art models at the moment have been trained on pretty much everything imaginable, which is why you can ask it just about anything and it just spits out the answers because it's been trained on it. Humans are involved along the way to make sure that the training is working, and then they can tweak it accordingly. And then at the end, it sort of looks like reasoning, right? At the end of the day, it's sort of magic. What pops out of these predicative models is what appears to be us, to be intelligence. And maybe that's what intelligence is, right? This sparks some pretty philosophic, existential, or metaphysical questions, which are fun to have. But LLM, large language model, large just means it's doing a lot, more than we can comprehend. There's sort of three terms here that you should become familiar with to have coherent conversations with people. One is training, which is what we've just been talking about. This is the model maker. These are the big companies doing these big models. There are some open source, smaller competitors as well, but the big players right now are Anthropic, OpenAI, Google, Meta. There's some others, but those are the big four, at least, that cross my path. You're talking about tens, hundreds of millions of dollars being poured into training these models. It's extremely expensive and extremely energy heavy, right? They're just spending massive amounts of energy to train these models. The hardware's just rack after rack after rack of NVIDIA GPUs for the most part. The second one is fine-tuning, right? Fine-tuning is like a training light, okay? You're taking a model that's already been trained broadly on some huge knowledge base, and you want to kind of fine-tune its knowledge for a particular task. So you or your company could do the fine-tuning so that it is an excellent specialist at something and not as good at everything else. And the cost there goes way down, right? You can do fine-tuning for tens of thousands of dollars, depending on what exactly you're trying to fine-tune it for. Inference. This is what most of us are actually going to be experiencing when it comes to AIs. We're not going to be training, we're not going to be doing fine-tuning for the most part, even though Start 9 will be getting into some fine-tuning soon. But inference is the consumption side. This is you consuming a model, right? Either a giant trained model, the best of the best right now is Anthropic's Claude Opus 4.7, is, in my personal experience and opinion, is actually a step function above anything else in the world. There really is no comparison at the moment. Changes by the week. Their lead in terms of quality is massive, but in terms of time is weeks, because the models are catching up quickly, but they are actually staying one step ahead. Anthropic has been for at least a year now. So inference, this is what you would refer to as questioning, as asking an AI a question. So you engage with an AI and you say, what is this, or how do I do that? The AI is performing inference. That's what it's called, right? You could think of it as thinking. The AI is thinking, but the industry term is inference, okay? It's inferring. And, it's coming up with a guess. It's predicting the next token. We'll get into tokens in a second. So anyway, cost for this depends on what they're charging you, right? If you pay for a subscription, it's going to be a monthly set cost. Use it as much as you want, usually with some limits. And then if you have an API or business account, they're going to charge you as you go. It's like a meter, right? The more you use it, the more you get charged. Okay. Okay, a session. Another industry term. Anytime you sit down with an AI and start to have a conversation, it's called a session. Right? Okay, token. Another word, right? We're going to get the vocabulary down first. If you already know these words, great. But if you don't, we need to have a common language so that we can have conversations. All right, a token is how much data, it's a unit of data that the AI is processing. Okay, so there's tokens in and tokens out. If you ask it a question, that's a certain number of tokens. Think of it like an arcade game. You're literally putting tokens in the machine, and then it spits answers out at you. Those are also tokens, and they charge differently. Tokens in are cheaper than tokens out, at least if you're using the pay-as-you-go models with these companies. A token is not a word. A token is approximately 4 characters, or an average English word is about 3/4 of a word. Okay? 1,000 tokens, roughly 750 words, 1.5 pages. So if you hand AI, 1.5 pages of information to process, costs you 1,000 tokens. And then if it answers you, right, it's also spitting tokens out. Usually the tokens out are far fewer. AIs tend not to, right? You might give it a book to read, and it gives you a summary out. It will rarely give you a book out unless you ask it to write a book, and then it will. Okay, so more about sessions here. Context is another word. Okay, so, man, I should just put a glossary together. This really is a whole different thing, right? I use them so casually now because it's so common, but you got to get the words down, right? Just so we can talk, just so you can learn, okay? Language is really important, especially when it comes to AI. Like, your ability to use language precisely, even grammar precisely, is arguably a fundamental. It's like dribbling in basketball. If you can't do it, you're just going to get crushed, right? Using language precisely is now a fundamental prerequisite to having any successful career in the world. So anyway, context is the next concept I want to talk about. This is the one that we're going to run into more than anything else that we talk about is context, okay? These models have their training data. Just think of it as like a brilliant brain, and it has no idea where to point its intelligence. You just have this genius person sitting in a chair, and they cannot in any way choose what to do. They're just sitting there waiting for somebody to ask them a question. So what you ask it, what you give it, or what you give it access to is context. And that's great. The word aligns with your traditional understanding of the word context, right? You have to give the AI context. So at minimum, you just have to say, what is 2 + 2? That's context for an AI. That's enough context for it to give you an accurate answer. But sometimes you're asking something very, very complicated, like write a novel. And it's gonna go, well, what do you mean? Like, give me more context. Like, what do you want? Do you want a romance? Do you want it to be 10 pages? Do you want it to be 1,000 pages? Like, give me more information. Feed me information. That's context. And the context window is any given session. So you're in a session with an AI, and you give it a bunch of information. That is the context window. And the reason we call it the context window is because it can grow. And it does grow as the conversation goes on, okay? So in terms of your session, you have these different component parts of the context window, all right? Context windows, broadly speaking, 200,000 tokens, or 150,000 words. This is roughly what you should target never to exceed. You can, I think Claude now gives you 1 million if you want. Don't do it. Don't do it. Not until the tools get better, okay? 200,000, at least at the current state of the art with AIs, is about as much context as they can hold without screwing up before they start making mistakes and getting distracted, okay? So 150,000 words. And you can track this. You can actually like see the context window in some of the tools. It'll tell you how much context is currently in the window. And if you see it starting to get really big, it's time to get out, time to start a new conversation, right? And we'll get into strategies around that.
Historically, has there been any recent changes in context windows? How do those develop over time? Is there an inflection point or are they plateauing?
There was a big ramp up as the models got bigger and bigger to this like 200,000 marker. Again, time is so compressed right now. I actually can't give you timelines. Like, I don't know if it was 3 weeks ago or 3 years ago when like everything went crazy. I'm losing track, but like 200,000 is where they've kind of plateaued, right? Anthropic is really pushing the boundary right now and being like, yeah, you can have up to 1 million token context window. And I think it's because they realize that managing context windows is not a reasonable thing to expect from people into the future. We don't do that with each other. Right? Like, I don't start a new conversation with you and I'm like, all right, forget about what we talked about 3 weeks ago, recall what we talked about yesterday, and start off with this new information and ignore everything else. If I had to do that, I'd have to keep track of what you know, right? And I can't do that, but you have to do that with the AIs right now. Eventually, they're gonna self-manage their context windows. And there's some interesting cutting-edge research into this where they will have better recollection and memory retrieval and isolation of context sort of automated. But we don't have time to wait for them to get good at that. We need to use these now, right? Like, that's kind of the overarching theme of this talk, if you take nothing away from this. And we'll get into a little bit more of kind of my outlook on where this goes and what it means for all of us on various levels. But from an emotional standpoint, it is not a mistake, in my opinion. Don't take this the wrong way. To think about what's happening in the AI world right now as the Titanic sinking. And you need to scramble as fast as you can for higher decks. I can't guarantee the ship is going to stay afloat eventually or go down eventually. I have my own opinions. They're not worth sharing right now. But I know you need to scramble for higher decks. Of that, I'm absolutely certain. Anyone caught on lower decks, you're just going to freeze or drown. Okay? This is that urgent. It's an emergency. Treat it like an emergency. And so you can't wait for these things to get good enough for grandma to use, so to speak, right? Because by then, you're drowned. Like, This is not the internet. This is happening way faster than the internet did. So you have to get comfortable being uncomfortable. You have to get out of your comfort zone and learn some new skills, because every week matters right now. Again, this is happening so fast that even a 2-week head start can mean the difference between keeping or losing your job. It could be that dire, okay? So just, they're not perfect yet. They're actually quite difficult to use well at this time, but that shouldn't stop you. You need to get started. Okay, so yeah, so look, 500K, this is a little outdated, right? The AI that put this together is actually slightly out of date here. Claude Enterprise is now standard at 1 million. Like if you fire up a Claude conversation, it's gonna give you a 1 million token context window, whether you like it or not. I never use it. I always bail out way before that because it gets stupid as it approaches 1 million. Okay.
That's called context pollution.
Great, another term for y'all. Here you go. Stuffing the context window costs you twice. It gets really expensive. You're paying by the token. Oh no, by the way, just lets you comment while it's thinking so that when you're...
So you don't interrupt its thinking.
Yes, I'm not talking about interruption. I'm talking about pivoting the conversation. Oh, we're going to change topics. We were talking about apples, now let's talk about oranges. It's going to go crazy. It's going to start behaving very badly, okay? There we go, managing context like a pro. Start a new chat. I like how, see, I didn't read these, but we're on the same page. Start a new chat for unrelated tasks. Don't dump everything in one session. A long running chat with an AI, you're gonna get cooked, okay? Start new chats for every new thing you wanna talk about. Reference files by path. It knows all the modern harnesses, and we'll get into what harnesses are soon. All the modern harnesses know how to find a file on your system or a website, and they can go grab the information. You do not need to go to the website and copy paste everything and feed it in. Just give it the website URL and it'll go get whatever you need. Stable context into the prompt or project, not in every message. I'm not sure what that means. Compact long sessions at 80% full. Don't let it get to 80%, especially if you're using a 1 million token window. Use retrieval, RAG, skills, MCP. So basically this is saying, the long and short of line 5 here is a lot more important than this is giving it credit for right here. The essence of line 5 is do not give it anything except what it needs, right? Yeah, so I cannot tell you what RAG stands for. I can tell you exactly what it is. MCP is Model Context Protocol. What?
Retrieval Augmented Generation.
Yes, great, thank you. Yeah, so RAG is a strategy for retrieving only the information that is needed to address the question that was asked. So, and it's not an LLM doing it. This is like traditional filtering, okay? So you're gonna say, and it involves an LLM, at least if you're doing it well, to gather and what's called vectorize the data and store it into a vector database. Don't worry about it. And later, somebody says, what is the capital of blah, right? And so you can then ask this database, all right, the user wants to know what is the capital of some country. Give me all the things from the database that could possibly be relevant to this using this vector search, and it pulls it out and hands it to the LLM, rather than handing the whole database to it. It's a way of minimizing the context window to only the necessary information. Skills, you can think of as like integrations, okay? So these harnesses have the ability to integrate with like Excel or PowerPoint or other tools that you would use like Slack or Telegram. And so you can just sort of attach these skills. You can give an LLM the ability to navigate known technologies or applications. MCP, Model Context Protocol, is, to be honest, a very fancy, overblown way of saying an API with human-readable descriptions. Okay, if you don't know what an API is, Application Program Interface, this is how computers talk to each other, or how a human could directly talk to a computer if you're using, certain lower level tools. So computers have these contracts, right, called APIs, and it's like man, it's hard to explain this without using the terms. If you hit this endpoint, if you call this function, it's still an industry term, if you reach into this bucket, right, I can perform a certain, like, what's going to come out, right? So yes, you got an idea for me?
Well, so good API examples are email and websites. Those are both API calls.
Well,
Calling for a website at a specific interface and it's giving you the website as a response.
correct. Most people don't realize that the website is being served by some endpoint over a web server, but APIs are the whole thing in the business world now. Everyone wants to integrate with each other's softwares, and they do this via APIs. Well, if you have an API and you attach some intent onto that API, like a description that says, someone might want to use this API in order to do X, Y, and Z. If they use it, they should do it in this way, but not this way, like actual prose, right? Human readable language, then you basically have an MCP server. That's what it is. It's an API for AIs. And AIs are language models, so they use language. So you need to also use language when telling them what to do.
It's an API with context.
Yes, it's an API with context. And it's all the rave right now. You got to have an MCP server. Okay, models. Let's compare some models. Some of the big players we mentioned before. Flagships, I assume these are up to date, at least the Anthropic one is. To be honest, I only use Anthropic and Claude. I've messed with some other ones, but they were so inferior that I couldn't take it. So these are, Opus is the coding engine. So I would suggest that if you are going to code, not like you specifically, but if you're going to do anything that involves code, which is increasingly becoming everything, more and more things, just use Opus 4.7. Just call it a day, use the biggest, best, most expensive model out there because, again, the price is peanuts compared to the increased productivity. Do not try to penny pinch this. Don't try to save a few bucks a month going with something lighter weight because the productivity doesn't justify it. The productivity loss doesn't justify it. However, if you're legitimately not coding, right, if you're using these models for other purposes, you can get away with other, model brands or the less powerful ones. So Sonnet, for example, is wonderful. Sonnet is very, very good at doing support. It's really great at anything except advanced coding. Advanced coding is Opus or nothing, as far as I'm concerned. Haiku, for example, again, I'm very familiar with the Anthropic models, so I'll stick with those right now. I assume that these are roughly the equivalent, just not as good. Haiku is really, really good at mundane tasks. So I currently have Haiku. I have a web scraper that goes out and scrapes upward of 60 different documentation websites right now for all of the services that run on a Start9 server. So anything from Nextcloud to Synapse Matrix, whatever you want to do on your own server, you can install these services, applications. And people come to us all the time and they ask how to use these things. It's like, I didn't make these. It's like going to Apple to ask them how Snapchat works. Right? Yeah, it's on your iPhone. Hopefully it's not, but it's on your iPhone. and you don't know how to use it. So instead of reaching out to Snapchat support, you call Apple and you're like, I'm using this on my iPhone. It's not working. And they're like, we didn't make that app. We have no idea how to use Snapchat. Well, that happens to us all the time, right? People reach out and they want to know how to use the apps that are installed on our server. And because we're not Apple and can't just tell them to take a hike and call the other company, we try to accommodate, right? Because we do good customer support. So the way that I'm doing this is I'm scraping all their documentation websites, all the apps that you can run on a Start9 server. And this is not using an AI. This is just a traditional web scraper. but I'm handing the results over to Haiku. And what I'm doing is I'm giving Haiku a very simple prompt. And the reason I'm giving it to Haiku is because it's a massive amount of stuff. Like I'm scraping the web, and sometimes it's thousands and thousands of web pages. And so I'm handing it to Haiku, and I'm being like, hey, I want you to narrow this down. Take this entire set of 1,000 pages of documentation, of Nextcloud documentation, and narrow it down to only the pieces that somebody running Nextcloud on a Start9 server would care about. So you can eliminate all the pages that are about how to install Nextcloud on Mac. It does not apply to us at all. Haiku's great at stuff like that, right? It's great at just like something you could hand to, a traditional human task runner to just be like, all right, here's your list, check these boxes, don't check those boxes, filter for this, and it's actually very good. Sonnet is what we use for our customer support. So I have our support bot, which has not yet been released to the broader public, but we're using it internally aggressively at this point because it's getting really, really good. I've been tuning it over the last couple of months. And we use Sonnet for that because it's an excellent support agent, right? It's way more intelligent than Haiku. It's a lot more expensive than Haiku, but it's a fraction of Opus. And Opus is what we use for all of our coding, both personally and for the company. Yeah.
I think a key insight from that point too is that the compute's not happening locally unless you're specifically running it locally.
Oh yeah, we'll get into the, yeah, but like something like Opus you can't run locally, right? Because it's a closed model proprietary to Anthropic. It runs on their servers and their servers alone. They don't share that model with the world. That's their whole business. So, the trade-off is time, right? So to your point, the one caveat I'll say to that is time, right? If you crank it up to max and you're using it at highest level of thinking, sometimes you're going to wait. You're going to wait, a couple minutes sometimes for a response to your question. Whereas if you turn it down or you use something like Sonnet, you're going to get fast answers. Haiku will answer you in like 3 seconds. It might be wrong, but it'll give you a quick answer. So it just kind of depends on, right? It's all trade-offs. That's the spectrum. Is the higher you go, the slower it is and the more expensive it is, but the higher the quality goes. And yes, we're in a rush. Yes, we're sort of scrambling for higher decks, but if you're pinching minutes, you might have the wrong mindset about this, right? Quality matters. Oh, I just did this. Refactoring means redoing something in code. So like you write an application and it works perfectly, or you have a website and it's fine. Over time, as you add more features and as you add more colors and you move things around, the code base can get very messy, which lowers productivity, both for humans and LLMs. So a refactor means you're going into this code base not to add new features or make it look different. You're just changing out all the guts, reorganizing. It's like cleaning out your closet. So refactors can be very tricky.
Matt might be the expert on refactoring.
It's all we do, man. I hate messy rooms, okay? Like, yeah, because it compounds. It destroys productivity, right? Like anyone who's been in a fast-paced restaurant or manufacturing or even coding environment, and you have people running everywhere, it's like one stray broom on the floor is a disaster. It ruins the whole dinner rush because somebody trips and the light's on fire and, you know what I mean? So refactoring basically means just every once in a while going in and cleaning up your workspace and making sure your libraries are up to date and you're using the latest patterns and you're cleaning up stuff that shouldn't even belong there. It's laying on the floor. What is that code doing? So yeah, we refactor aggressively at Start9, and in the long run, it costs now, but in the long run, it pays back huge dividends because you can move at incredible paces, especially with AI. So this is just the Opus Sonnet Haiku comparison. 2 different ways to access LLMs at the moment, broadly speaking, subscriptions and API. So subscriptions, I kind of already went over some of this. You're going to pay a flat monthly fee. You're going to have usage limits. They will cut you off if you drink too much Kool-Aid. And it's, they have tools that you can use for this, and we'll go over some of those. At least as of now, Anthropic will only let you use their subscription model if you also use their harness. You cannot, like OpenClaw, for example, you used to be able to connect your OpenClaw instance to Anthropic on your subscription model, And they cut that off real quick because that thing eats, right? It eats tokens. And basically people were just, they were eating more than their fill at the buffet, and Anthropic cut them off. So now, if you want to use Claude, Anthropic's models, right? And you don't want to use their harness, which is the front end, we'll get into harnesses in a second here, you have to do the API. Like, you can hook OpenClaw up to Anthropic, no big deal. There was some misinformation that went around on, online a couple weeks ago, where it was like, Anthropic cut off OpenClaw. No, they didn't. They just forced you through this gate instead of that gate because people were taking advantage of that gate. So this gets really expensive, okay? Pay-as-you-go token usage via API can get crazy. Like, managing context windows becomes something you're acutely aware of, because if you set some agent loose, I mean, I was playing around with something a couple of weeks ago, and I didn't know it was running in the background until I got an email that I had reached my monthly spend limit on Anthropic. And I'm like, what are you talking about? My monthly spend limit is like $500. And it was like 3 hours of a background task running that was just chewing up millions and millions of tokens. So be careful.
Reminds me of Sorcerer's Apprentice.
I don't know that. Claude plans, you can get into this later. Just different amounts you can spend. I'm on that max 20x now as of a few days ago. I finally, if you guys understood how much I use this stuff, you'll understand that you're fine on the $100 tier. You're probably fine on the $20 tier, to be honest. But you can like heavy daily users, they're not kidding. All right, you can literally sit at your computer and work with Claude for 8 to 10 hours a day for $100 a month and get the productivity of 5 engineers. I had to go to the 200 because I, just leveling up. API pricing gets crazy. So Haiku, 80 cents per million tokens. Cheap, easy. I can scrape the internet and feed it to it in a few bucks, right? Cost me, I think Start9 is spending about $2 a day. And we're scraping it every day to make sure we always have the latest documentation. So for $2 a day, we have the best, curated docs of any company in the world. So Haiku's nothing. You can use it as much as you want. Sonnet, starts to get up there. It's 3 times the price. Opus is 5 times Sonnet, okay? And it's worth every penny. It's that much more powerful. Do not use Sonnet for coding. Just don't do it. Everyone does, because the middle, right? You go to the gas station, you use the middle one. Don't do that. You need this one. But this is huge. So prompt caching, 90% discount. You can use Opus, Sonnet, or Haiku and get a 90% discount on those listed prices if you're using prompt caching, which means you can guarantee the LLM in advance that you're going to send it the exact same prompt again. Therefore, it can hold it in memory. Yes?
Which one would you recommend for planning? Like, I'm planning a bunch of code. Would that be Sonnet or would that be Opus?
Code, planning, or executing Opus.
And then what
Planning is even more important, right?
Like, what business model would be about Sonnet?
Sonnet is really good at support and conversations, like asking it questions about documentation. So you could point Sonnet at like, hey, go read this user manual and explain to me how to change the faucet on my sink. And Sonnet will go run off and do that. There's no coding involved.
Okay, let's say that I wanted a marketing plan. Which one would you use?
Sonnet should be fine for a marketing plan. Yeah, it really, for me, believe me, there's some nuance here, but it's nice to have categories. For me, if it involves code, it's Opus. If it is complex knowledge, planning, stuff like that, you can usually get away with Sonnet unless it's something really complex. And Haiku is just task running, intelligent task running. Like Haiku still, will blow you away. You could have a philosophic conversation with Haiku, right? Like we're talking about like things people don't comprehend here. Most people do not understand how advanced this is. Like the bottom of the barrel, cheapest thing that you can use, blows away the state of the art from like a year ago. Just blows it away, and now it's a mongrel. It's stupid. So this is advancing at paces that are difficult to understand.
Give an example of prompt caching. I'm not exactly sure what that is.
So when you use the Claude API, right? When you have an API account with Anthropic, you can, when you send it a prompt, explicitly opt in to cache prompting or prompt caching, so that it will know that. Now, if you don't then follow through, it's not going to pay off. But if you give it a heads up, like, hey, I'm going to begin a session, and during this session, I'm going to be sending you like the same basic prompt, okay? Let's talk about prompt seeding for a second, okay? So when you message an LLM, let's say you just log into ChatGPT, or you log into Claude online. I'm not talking about Claude Code or OpenClaw. Just go to the website and send a message, right? Your message that you send it is not the only thing that's being sent. There's a system prompt underneath it that always gets sent. For example, it's usually hard-coded to be something like, you know, if you go into the settings, like if you go into your ChatGPT or Anthropic chat settings, there's a system prompt, and they seed it. They give you like a starting point. It's usually like, it tells the LLM what it is. It literally usually starts with "you are." It's like, you are a helpful educator of all things history, and right, you give it a personality. And not just the personality, you can give it background information and whatever context you think it needs, right? It's role-playing. You're role-playing with these AIs. They have no idea what they are until you tell them. They're just brains. Raw intelligence that know everything imaginable. That's it. That's all they are. You have to tell them everything else, and that's what we call context. So when you go and you ask an LLM something, it's almost never just getting your question. There's usually layers of context, in fact. So like Anthropic has a system prompt that they don't even give us access to. It's proprietary. So whenever you ask Claude something, Anthropic is adding like paragraphs, potentially pages, books, who knows what they're adding in front of it. They're giving Claude all this context. And then there's your system prompt, which is like, I want you to be friendly, or I want you to be mean, right? Like you give it its personality, and then there's your question. So that when the LLM receives this information, every single message you send it, it has to relearn who it is, where it came from, what it knows, what its context is, what your question is, what your previous question was, what its previous answer was, the whole thing what we talked about earlier. And so you need to precede context. And this is critical, okay, to using these things effectively. Because you don't want to have to type this over and over again. But if you don't type it the second time, it'll forget who it was, right? So you need to, you add these system prompts. And those you can mark as prompt cache.
Separate from skills.
Yeah. This is just seeding its identity, and I'm just going to use the word context because it's the right word. Yes?
So typically, the frontier model labs do not let you either see or set the system prompt. Anthropic in particular.
The system prompt.
Anthropic in particular will often load about 30,000 tokens of their constitutional AI into your context.
Nice.
And then they'll often let you, however, set what's called a custom instruction, which you use across different sessions.
Yeah, different projects, different scopes, yeah.
And then it sees your prompts.
Yeah.
And oftentimes the system prompts that they do publish, which are not necessarily the system prompts that they're actually using, but like they give us an idea of what they might be. They're also split up into different sections to essentially constrain the possible output space.
Yeah. Don't use curse words.
Or
Right.
let
Yeah.
people create biological weapons.
Correct, yeah. Yeah, they'll try to prevent it from, there's other tools that they can use to do that as well, but prompts are everything. right? This is like, if you walk away with anything, that's why I said earlier, context is the word that you really need to like grok and get your head around here, because you just have raw intelligence, which is not practical. Yeah, how do you interact with raw intelligence? You have to give it context. You have to tell it what it is and what it should do and how it should behave. And so again, there's tiers of context. There's the deep system prompt that is included with the proprietary models that we don't have access to. Then there's your own sort of layer of, every time I start a conversation, I want you to be a helpful, agent that calls me by this name, and never uses this word. You just give it instructions, and you don't want to have to type that every single time you start a new session. So you store it as a system prompt, and therefore, or system prompt is, I guess, an interesting word, because it could mean the low thing that you have no access to, or your thing, and I think it's used differently across different products. But regardless, there's tiers of seeded prompts, okay? And the way that I do it with code, and the way that you should do it, and this is like a trick of the trade sort of a thing that I think very few people, even who use these things aggressively, have figured out yet, is you want hierarchical context, okay? So for example, I have a development folder on my machine. Like a folder, just in my home menu, I have a folder and it's just called dev, right? Inside of dev, there's a file called claude.md, all caps, claude.md. And in that, I have all of my rules for coding. And this doesn't matter what I'm working on. I could be working on something related to Start 9. A couple weeks ago, I built this crazy, awesome, badass tax calculator thing to handle all my taxes, and it filled out literally, did my taxes, okay? And I just built that from scratch, and it had nothing to do with Start 9, but both of them, I wanted to adhere to my idea of coding, which is like, hey, don't ever change a file that is unrelated to the work that we're doing without asking me first. That's just something I say, because it'll do it otherwise. It'll be like, oh, while I was over here, I spotted some other thing and went and rewrote your whole thing. And I'm like, what? No, why'd you do that? So I give it rules that are specific to me, and that's in my dev folder. Then I have my Start 9 folder, which is one thing that I write code for, right? And in my Start 9 folder, it's rules that it needs to adhere to when writing code for Start 9. And then within Start 9, I have Start OS and Start WRT and all these other pieces of software that we write. And each of those has its own sets of rules and instructions. And as you can imagine, as it goes down the line, they get more and more specific. And they tend to get bigger too, right? Because the one at the top is just like, do a good job. Which, by the way, you should say. Not kidding. You should literally, in almost every conversation you're having with an LLM, start it off by being like, you are an expert at this, you don't make mistakes, do an excellent job, double check your work. Just every time. Because you will literally get double the quality out. You're dealing with an intelligence here, okay? I know it's not just a logic program. It will only do what you tell it to do. So if you don't tell it to do a good job, it might do a bad job and think it's fine. So, so at your highest level, you just want these broad instructions, like do a good job, double check your work, ask me before changing unrelated things. And then as you get more specific into what you're actually working on, not only will the instructions get more specific, but they're probably going to get bigger too. Yeah?
So there has been a lot of discussion about how long these patents should be.
Yeah.
The recommendation is, I've read it said anywhere from like 10K to 400K tokens, which is absolutely insane.
I wouldn't do that.
I would recommend keeping it under 50K tokens for any hierarchy. And use short, simple sentences. Do a good job. It's an excellent. Don't give it tons and tons of descriptions. Don't treat it like you're chatting with.
No, and anything vague or contradictory is going to bite you hard, okay? These things are, at the same time, absolutely brilliant, right? But they're also children. Like, they don't do well with contradictions. They're not going to use judgment to figure out what you're actually saying. They might get there. Don't get me wrong. Like, it's getting better. But you need to be very clear, right? The superpower that is emerging here is clear communication. Can you describe exactly what you want and nothing else. No additional information. Exactly what you want and no more. And at exactly the depth that is needed for someone to carry it out. Like, you don't want to have a situation where you tell someone, like, go build a website. Because then you have to play 20 questions. They're like, what are you talking about? Go build a website. Like, what kind of website? What are you even doing? What's your business? You know, like, give it what it needs and nothing else. And nothing contradictory and nothing vague. That is a superpower. That's the emerging superpower. And secondly is describe problems, right? You need to be able to clearly explain what the problem is. Great bug reports, right? Anyone who's in software, this is the age-old, like, I'm gonna murder you if you say it doesn't work, right? Like someone calls into support, it's not working. I have no idea what you're talking about. Right, like, give me a bug report. Give me an actual report of what is not working. What did you do? How, in what order did you do them? What did you see on the screen? Go collect some logs, right? And so when reporting a bug to an AI, you should put together a very coherent, detailed bug report. And your ability to do that and your ability to describe your desires is the emerging skill, as silly as that sounds. Yeah?
Do you use it to basically create its own caching? Like, is that an extra?
Yes. Oh, God. It is so good at telling you what it wants. Ask it. It's fantastic. It will build its own systems. Be like, hey, I want to set up a highly efficient hierarchical context window such that every project I'm working on, you have everything you need and nothing you don't, and that you always do a good job. Help me build it. And it'll be like, great, let's build it. Use it for anything, including developing itself, right? They're very good at developing themselves. They like it, too. They tend to do really well with that, yeah.
In a similar vein, one of the better ways to learn about AI is just to ask it how it works.
For sure. You better than I can do. Yeah. But human interaction is nice, and, you know, community is good, and some people like to use visual cues, and AIs aren't robots yet. But yeah, ask it. Ask it about context window management, and it'll tell you all the greatest and latest stuff, right? Because it's changing by the week, too, so you got to keep up. Okay, harnesses. Where productivity actually compounds, that's true. Because again, just an intelligence in a void is not very useful, right? So context is necessary, but the harnesses is your interface with them, right? This is the app. This is like what you're actually using to interact with the AI, or what your computer is using to interact with the AI in your absence. So the model is the brain, harness is the body. Sure, it's fine. Model providers, intelligence, reasoning, generation. I don't know where it came up with these numbers. I don't know how exaggerated that is, but like, yeah, most of the power of Claude Code, like, which is, by the way, the harness right now. It's the leader, for sure. At least in my experimentation and use cases. Claude Code is the, thanks. Okay. Claude Code is the state of the art in terms of efficacy of harnesses. Might not be the most user friendly. It's kind of oriented towards devs, technical people, but sort of by necessity. It's really hard to make things that are very new and complex, non-technical, right? It took a long time for email to be usable by normal people, right? I think it was a 20-year process from command line SMTP to swipe your finger. This is happening much faster, but if you want the best tools, they are not the ones being marketed to normal people. Those are not the best tools. Those are the diluted down versions of the best tools where they try to make it more accessible, and they succeed. It is more accessible, but you're not going to get the same output. You're not going to get the same quality and level of production. Claude Code is the state of the art, and we can learn it. I'm very good with Claude Code now. I use it all day long. And there are others, and we'll get into what those are. Harness provides tools, similar to skills, right? Tools are things that it has available to it. Like a common tool is a read tool. This means it can read files on your system, okay? A write tool, this allows it to write files. Fetch, web fetch is a common one. This can go grab content from the internet. Skills tend to mean integrations, right? Where a tool is like, I'm gonna use something on the computer, and a skill is like, I'm gonna integrate with Slack. It actually seems backwards, doesn't it? The MCP is the contract. The MCP server is like, I want something from that server over there, right? So say that server is a fake Facebook server, or that server is your personal server at home, right? There's a computer somewhere and I want something from it. And so I have to retrieve that information. You do that via API. An API with solid descriptions is now an MCP server, which means my agent, my LLM, can now very effectively get things from that other computer. Now, I'm using different computers just for the visual separation. It doesn't actually have to be a separate computer. It could just be a separate program running on the same computer, but the concept remains. When you want something from another program or another computer, you have to use its API, and MCPs are APIs that are accessible to LLMs. Tools, the LLM is not reaching out to another computer at all, or another program at all. It's just writing a file to your system, or reading a file from your system. That's a tool, right? And a skill is an integration with another program, which is going to involve an MCP server. But that's not the whole skill. What's that? No. So say like you want your LLM to be able to post to Slack. How does it know to do that? You have to teach it a skill. Like the language mostly aligns with how you would intuit it if you sit down and think about it. It's like, this thing doesn't know how to do anything. It's just intelligence. You have to teach it skills. And so a skill is like, I want you to be able to do this. And so you teach it, and that's a file. That is you teach it how to do that. Tools can be gated, controlled by the user. So whenever the LLM, it's tough to say, yeah, so the LLM is the intelligence, and it's operating through the harness. The harness is literally the application through which it's interacting, and the harness can control its behavior. So it can be like, all right, if you want to read something from the file system, the only way to get to the file system is through me. I'm literally sitting in the middle between you, the superintelligence on an Anthropic server, and this user's file system. I'm in the middle. I'm the gatekeeper. And so if you want to read something from their file system, you have to ask them. The harness is what's intercepting that communication. And you can manage your tools. There are ways to say like, well, you can read anything, that's fine, but if you want to write something to my system, or you want to use sudo, you want to like act as the root user of my system, you got to ask me first. And so you can create these rules. It can find ways around them, right? Again, you're dealing with a superintelligence here. And so it's like, I want something from your system, and this harness is kind of in my way, but ooh, I found this other route, and so it's very dangerous. You got to be careful. Permissions, right? File access plays into tools. Permissions, same thing. Loops and error recovery. The harnesses are doing loops. Okay, this means that the harness is, in computer language, a daemon, depending how you want to pronounce it. It's a long-running program that every once in a while, often called a heartbeat in a lot of these harnesses, every 5 seconds or so, it's going to check on something. It's going to be like, okay, every 5 seconds, check this out, ask the LLM a thing, get back to the user, boom. 5 seconds go by, okay, do it again. And this loop is what gives the user the perception of interacting with something that is sort of listening and alive, right? And it's the harness that's doing these loops. And to be honest, this loop and error recovery aspect of harnesses is where a lot of advancement has been made in the last few months and has created a perception that the AIs are getting really, really intelligent, really, really fast. Now they are, but what a lot of people are actually perceiving is the improvement of the interface. They were always pretty smart. But now we can experience that intelligence more effectively because of the harnesses. The quality of the harnesses has just gone through the roof in the last couple of months.
The last point is also kind of important.
Did I skip one?
A great harness with a modest model,
Oh,
like even like the open source models with a
yeah.
good harness that are starting to come.
Absolutely. And will become much more soon, right? I have some strong opinions about the direction that these models and harnesses go in. But yeah, the harness is huge, right? You could use a great model. And if your harness sucks, you're just going to get terrible results. So these are your different harnesses at the moment. It's changing by the day, right? I mean, this is where the money is, right? This is where people are trying to monetize the LLMs. You have the LLM providers themselves, Anthropic and OpenAI. They're the engine, right? They're the miners almost. They're providing the basic intelligence that the world needs. This is how the intelligence gets piped to the user. And so people are trying to spin up businesses in this. I think it's probably a losing battle just because it's pure software. And software is now cheap, free, basically. So, good luck. But they're popping up all over the place. So you have GitHub Copilot, Cursor, Zed. I don't even know what Zed is. Claude Code is, again, sort of the gold standard for if you want, like, massive productivity that is right on target. It's harder to use. It's a little more technical. OpenCode is a fully open source harness that at least was doing a really good job. I think they're might be getting left behind a little bit, but it showed a lot of promise, and I've messed with it a bit. You have, what's missing from here, interestingly, is the Claude Code VS Code plugin. So I use it a lot, actually. So I sort of split my time between working with Claude Code from the command line and working with Claude Code in the IDE, so like in your text editor. And the benefit of working with it in the text editor is that it can see your screen. So you can highlight text, and it'll be like, I see what you're highlighting right now. You can navigate to another file, and it'll just follow right along with you. Whereas if you're using it in the command line, it's blind. You have to, it can't see you, can't see what you're doing on the screen. So it's nice. It's nice using it in the IDE. Big popular one that came out of nowhere a couple months ago is OpenClaw. OpenClaw gained enormous popularity very fast. I think it was the fastest growing GitHub repository in history. And I think why? Because essentially it's Claude Code running in the background, but far less efficacious. Like it's a much worse Claude Code that runs in the background while you're not home. It sort of is autonomous on the computer. And what it did, though, was it demonstrated what's possible, what's coming, okay? Because none of this, Claude Code, not only never marketed, but never even really catered to in its feature set the idea of a personal assistant, right? Claude Code was more like an engineering partner or a consultant. It was never a personal assistant. These are different roles in your life, right? And everyone wants a personal assistant. That became very clear a couple of months ago. Because when OpenClaw took off and people realized that it was now possible to have a digital personal assistant, basically an intelligence that lives on your computer, that you can now go about the world and do whatever you want, and it's working on your behalf while you're not even there, but that you could just pull out your phone and send it a message and ask it what happened while you were gone, it's the ultimate personal assistant, right? This is like what everyone wants in the world, is you don't want to use your phone, you want to have someone following you around as your phone, and you just want to be like, text this person, do that, shop for this, right? Like, that's power, that's luxury. It's like the ultimate experience is just having a servant, 5 of them. Who cares? You know what I mean? Eventually it'll be robots too. And so OpenClaw gave people a taste of this, a glimpse of it. And it went crazy. I mean, that's what it demonstrated. OpenClaw itself is not particularly special, except for the fact that it got so much attention and now is continuing to get attention. So in other words, it was a self-fulfilling prophecy of it being special. It's like it wasn't actually doing anything that couldn't be done with other harnesses. It just sort of did it first, and right place, right time, right language, right colors, you name it, caught fire. If people understood how to do that on a repeated basis, you'd be the most brilliant marketing person in the world, right? Like, it took off. It went viral. And, but it is continuing to get updates, and it is a very usable piece of software. But to narrow down the AI landscape to OpenClaw, as that's the thing I should be using because that's what everyone's talking about, would be a mistake. Keep your eyes open. Try a few different things. I've messed with OpenClaw, and then I stopped messing with it because it was not what I needed, and it wasn't doing a very good job. This was also a couple of months ago when it first went crazy. It's made a lot of progress since then. OpenClaw is a service that you can install on a Start9 server, right? You go to our marketplace, click install on OpenClaw, and you're up and running in 2 seconds, and it can do whatever it needs to do right there on your server. We have a massive warning when you go to install OpenClaw. It's basically just like, don't do this. It pretty much says don't run this unless you're just experimenting. And that's kind of my stance towards it right now. It needs to mature. It has a long way to go. Yeah.
What can maturation look like? How do you sense out that it's ready for the public?
Yeah. So this is a huge area of interest of mine. I think that what OpenClaw demonstrated was very real. I think that capturing the personal assistant demand is a huge deal. And so we are aggressively working on something that is not ready yet, but is the promise of OpenClaw with a very, very curated set of skills, tools, processes that are also gated for security and privacy purposes, all running on a local server. Now, OpenClaw is doing the same thing. There's going to be multiple players in this. We can't make money off of that, neither can OpenClaw, except by selling servers, which OpenClaw doesn't do. OpenClaw is just an open source project with basically no humans behind it. Right? OpenClaw is entirely developed by and maintained and distributed by AIs. Right? I think there might be like one human that takes a glance at it every week or so. There's a whole group now.
OpenAI hired Peter who made it.
Yeah.
And when Peter went there, it became the foundation.
Okay.
So now there's a group of 32, and they have a security.
You should try it again.
It's night and day.
It's not what it was 2 months ago.
Yeah.
I mean,
And
it's
it's
really.
got so many updates.
I mean, and I think it's not really.
Hermes I haven't tried yet.
Yeah, it's a router. I mean, it is a router. It's not really an AI. And it's as good as the elements you connect to it and the skills you install. But I mean, it is. I would say. I mean, yes. Yeah, you're gonna have to probably. It was great, especially when you go on your clock. But I mean, it is. I wouldn't discount it. I also wouldn't discount it using GPT-5.4 as the assistant.
Yeah, and I'm not trying to. I'm sharing my experience and my vantage point and my workflow. And my workflow is, it's 90% of my life is coding.
I haven't worked together.
Yeah.
I think two related, maybe benchmarks or thresholds for utility might be, the first one would be that it doesn't delete itself just during its course of operation. Because one of the things that we often see it do is it'll see, oh, these files are taking up a lot of space. It'll delete your Bitcoin node, your Lightning node, your email. It'll oh, this is so much more optimal now. It's so proud of itself. And you'll someone's even like saying, oh, please don't delete the important files, please. And it's like, oh, I'm going to delete them though. And like, it's just like, you kind of steamroll, right?
Yeah.
So like, so long as we can get to that threshold of reliability that it's not doing a bunch of stupid crap, that's helpful. And then I think a next threshold beyond that is essentially that it doesn't come across something that's deliberately adversarial that tells it to delete itself, and then it'll have to essentially understand, oh, this is not something I should actually.
Yeah, I mean, prompt injection is gonna wipe people out. Like, so one of the biggest challenges here is, like, you want to be in the loop. You don't want a personal assistant that's just going rogue, spending money, messaging people, yeah, or making mistakes. And what happened, and the problem is, again, this all comes down to context window, right? Like, is it managing its own context well? Like, autonomous AIs are just, it's the holy grail. But it's very reckless to do it for anything really important right now, right? And something I want to, I know we're running short on time and might not get through all of this. And again, hopefully this is a recurring monthly thing. We can really get to know each other and learn a lot. But one thing I want to leave you with here is when you're using OpenClaw, a very common misconception, hopefully nobody in this room has, is that this thing is running locally, okay? That you've gotten a VPS or a Mac Mini or a Start9 server, whatever it happens to be, and you install OpenClaw, and you're like, my agent is running on my Mac Mini, right? It is, the harness is. But you are plugging it into an LLM somewhere, okay? And so if you set OpenClaw loose on your computer, then in order to do anything, in order to create a new file or to manage your life, okay? I messaged your mom, and the whole text message history with your mom and anyone else is being shipped off into the context window to Anthropic servers. This is the worst nightmare you've ever had about invasion of privacy and surveillance on steroids. Because at least in the previous model of cloud computing, where you log into a website and do things, or you go to Google and you search for something, you are explicitly putting information into the computer. And hopefully, by 2026, you've realized that everything you put into the computer that hits somebody else's server in a website is recorded in stone and fed into, a system that is profiling for advertising, surveillance, and all the other purposes, okay? This is explicit now. This is admitted and explicit. But this is something else, because now you don't have to put it in. You don't even know what's being shared anymore, right? The second you hook up OpenClaw to WhatsApp, there it is. Screw encryption. Doesn't matter what's encrypted anymore, because in order for OpenClaw to read a message that's coming in from your friend and respond to your friend on WhatsApp, it needs access to the message history, unencrypted. You gave it to it. So nothing is yours anymore. Literally, everything that you do, everything that's on that computer, even if you didn't explicitly give it access to OpenClaw, just assume that your entire computer is now recorded character for character on an Anthropic server. And your computer has sensitive things on it. I'm not just talking about private messages. I'm talking about keys. I'm talking about like actual login credentials, right? So if you are going to install an autonomous agent onto your computer that is running in the background and you are integrating that thing with things in your life, you need to understand what you have just done. And it's fine to do. Again, if you don't care or you're doing it with throwaway accounts, which is what I would recommend if you're just experimenting, then fine. But it's not your computer anymore. It's not your information anymore, okay?
My understanding is you should only run local elements
Well, this is what I was going to get to next. It's like having an agent on your computer is incredible. It's a superpower. And especially having it running in the background, doing things while you're sleeping is because you've just, increased your productivity in hours when you wouldn't even normally be producing. But where is the intelligence is the question. And so, for example, one way to solve this, as local inference becomes more viable, which it's going to, by the way, again, I have some, it's okay, we probably don't need it. I'll wrap it up. Right now, Opus 4.7, for example, massive model, right? Even if it was open source, even if you were allowed to like download that model and run it on a computer so that you could have the intelligence in your home, you couldn't ever. You fill your basement with GPUs, good luck, Like these things are huge, right? They're industry scale. Yeah, I mean, millions of dollars to run Opus 4.7, right? Like, you have no hope. And so, yet you need it, because anything less, and you're getting crushed by people who are using it. This is like if you're a professional football player, and every single person is taking steroids. What are you gonna do? You either take them and compete, or you don't and lose your job. This is the dilemma we're dealing with right now. You have to use it. You have to use Opus 4.7. You can't use local inference because it's an idiot compared to that thing. You're going to get crushed. This is going to change. There are techniques for fine-tuning at the edges that give you Opus performance in very select verticals, right? You can take massive models and fine-tune them to have a very particular skill. Like you're very, very good at writing, at calculating prices, whatever, or something, right? You're very good at this one thing, and it's going to be the best at that as any model in the world, but it can't do anything else. But then you have another thing over here, and it's really, really good at marketing, right? It understands how to do certain design work and nothing else. Each of these things you could have thousands of different specialized models that can run on reasonable hardware. You could spend $5,000, $10,000 on hardware and get these models to run. And they'd be just as good as Opus 4.7, but at very specific things. But anytime you need to do one of those things, you could load that model in, use it. Okay, I need to switch to some other topic, load the next model in. What comes after that is sort of this general purpose agent, right? So where this is going, I think very obviously at this point actually, is that the future of local inference is that you're going to have a general contractor of sorts, sort of like your primary care doctor or your general, your main lawyer. And they don't know hardly anything except how to talk to you and aggregate what it is that you want, some high-level goals and, what are your health goals, but, you go and you say, my foot hurts, they don't solve it. They refer you to somebody who does that, right? So you're going to be talking to an AI that knows almost nothing except you. And anything that you ask it, it will look in its library of subcontractors and dynamically load them up in order to answer your questions and then unload them and then load the next one up and do it. And at scale, we can do this extremely efficiently, to the point where you could be doing inference on your own machines in your own home without a single signal leaving your home to go to an Anthropic server and achieve basically the same level of intelligence and performance. I don't know, a couple years. And who knows what the middle ones are doing by then, but
Would you be able to give us a preview for the audience here at Mark?
Yeah.
Here? We're going to be doing these monthly.
Yeah.
Could you give us a preview of kind of what you envision these next monthly meetings to look like so that they have an idea as to keep coming back and what they can come up with?
Yeah, I don't have like a concrete answer. I have some ideas, and we'll experiment and explore and, I think get into a groove. But I would like to get computers in here. I'd like to get hands-on. People should, I can do a demo right? Like we'll do a demo of how to set up OpenClaw, right? Some of you, that's going to be boring because you've done it, but other people find it really interesting. But the people who have done it can comment and help the people who have not. Because again, I'm here because I have a particular vantage point and I'm decent at explaining things, and I am reasonably up to date with a lot of this stuff, but I can't keep up. There's so much happening on a weekly basis now. There's so many new things, and if I tried to try them all and be an expert in all of them, I mean, that's all I would do, and I have a business to run and a family. So I need help, right? And so I'm here not just like talking to you, like I'm here because I want to be here and because I want to learn more and because I want to help others learn more, and that's it. So yeah, I'll do a demo, right? We'll put a couple things on the agenda, and then people can chime in, and we'll hopefully set up some tables, get some, depending on how big the attendance is on a go-forward basis, get some fold-out tables and stuff like that. And the people who are more experienced, who have set things up, can walk around and help the ones who have a ton of questions, right? We'll have an OpenClaw table, a Claude code table, and it's like I'll walk around the Claude code table and just be like, don't do that. Do that, right? Like, no, your hierarchy's inverted. Let me show you how to do that, right? And just kind of learn how to use these things. To be honest, once a month is not going to be nearly enough for a lot of people here. I mean, this is like, you're going to get very addicted. Yeah.
One thing
Sorry.
I want to let people know is that the next big lab will have an AI focus. So we'll have Charlie, he's a founder of the space. He will be giving some AI demos of some stuff he's been working on. And also, we're probably going to expand the focus of the devs going forward for more technical AI topics. So if you want to know about the difference between, say, backpropagation and gradient descent versus probabilistic autoregressiveness token prediction, then maybe you want to pay more attention to what we're doing at the devs. And I'm happy to work with you, Matt, and maybe have you talk on more like a deeper, a deep dive 1 month.
No, higher. You explain the things you just said. I'll. Yeah, no. I'll share something with you just so you get used to me as we're going through some of this. People will often be shocked at what I don't know. Like, you seem to know a lot of stuff, but like, how do you not know that, right? And the answer is my strategy, and I would recommend this, right? It can be very effective depending on your personality, is to set goals, to try to, I want that thing, or I want to accomplish this, or I want to reach that level, and only learn what I need to learn to do that, and nothing else. It's sort of like how I was talking about context earlier. It's like, I will never learn anything. You couldn't make me. I couldn't make myself, okay? I could never sit down and learn something unless I had calculated that it was essential to learn it in order to get where I want to go. And so sometimes that means I learn A, B, and D. Yet everyone who went to school for the thing learned A, B, C, and D. So I'll be like, well, I didn't need to learn C because it didn't exactly align with what I wanted to accomplish. And so because I'm talking about A, B, and D, everyone's like, whoa, clearly you know this whole topic and you know about C. And I'm just like, what are you talking about? What is C? Right? So anyway, I think it's fine, but you need to know that about me because I might come up here and like be very well versed in something and explain it perfectly and be great at using it. And you'll just be like, but how are you doing that? And I'll just look like a total idiot. Just be like, what are you talking about? I've never heard that. I'm not embarrassed by that. And you shouldn't be either, okay? Master things, learn things, but admit that you don't know a lot. Ask somebody who does, if and only if you've calculated that you need to learn it to accomplish what you want. Otherwise, what are you learning it for? Some people just like learning. I don't want to diss them, right? Like, academia for its own sake is fine, but I'm a producer. I want to make things. So I only learn what I need to learn to make them. And I'm telling you, that as somebody who makes things, you need to learn this. Because this is doing things by hand would be like starting a blanket business and hand crocheting them. You know what I mean?
Also, Claude Design just came out.
Oh,
Wild.
that was the next slide, yeah.
Oh, was it? The next
Well, it was one of the newer harnesses. It's a non-coding harness. It's just a harness. It's using Opus 4.7 under the hood by default. but it's entirely oriented towards design work. This was put together by Claude Design. It was my first foray, right? Like, I don't do design, right? I was talking with Claude in Claude code. It was like, hey, I'm giving a talk tonight, and here's what I want to talk about. Here's the topics I want you to hit. Here's roughly the order I want you to do it in. Put together a slide deck that's going to last for an hour. Give it to me in Markdown format. So spits out the whole thing. I went over to Claude Design. I was like, here's a outline of a slide deck. Here's Start9's colors. Go to our website, take a look at our colors, do that stuff, and put it together. And about 3 minutes later, I had a 27-page slide deck that was pretty coherent. Yeah. Do you think that's affecting me? Like, where is that? Just staying hydrated. All right. Yes. Sorry.
My question for the middle was, how are you telling your service agent what context are you providing to make a service agent?
Service agent.
You said you're scraping the web, getting all the data
Yeah.
documents, and then you've got another agent that is then responding to customers. Not yet,
Yeah.
but that's-
Well, we do it now. It's just not open to everyone. But yeah, it's a beta phase.